Hello, greetings everyone. Happy New Year 2021. This is Dr. Francois Cadet, infectious disease specialist. I'm here to talk to you about why you should get the COVID 19 vaccine. And before I begin, I would like to share with you my experience of taking the Pfizer COVID vaccine recently.
Good, good, good. Yes, we are here to take the COVID shot, and today is Monday, December 21st, 2020. And I'm excited to get the pandemic behind me. Let's do this. Oh,
Boy, you got some tough skin.
yeah. Oh, wow. Didn't even feel it. No pain, no gain, but there was no pain.
That's right.
Yes, yes.
Well, why should you get the COVID 19 vaccine? The goal uh, tonight, is to equip you with information, with accurate and sound information, so you can make the best decision for yourself and your family. Remember, COVID 19 is here to stay for a while, even with relatively effective vaccines, unless at least 80% of the population get vaccinated. This is not the first time we have pandemic. It seems that every 100 years there's a pandemic. 1720, there was the Great Plague of Marseille that killed 100 about 100,000 people. In 1820, you had the first cholera pandemic that killed 100,000 people. In 1920, there was the Spanish flu or influenza pandemic that killed 50 to 100 million people. And then you had the COVID 19 in 2020. Currently, globally, there are more than 84 million people infected and more than 2 million people dead. In the US, we have more than 20 million people infected and more than 350,000 people dead. This is very sad and very concerning. Now, the states that are highly active are California, Texas, Florida, New York, Illinois, Ohio, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Arizona. Since the beginning of December, there's been an increase in daily cases, current hospitalization, and death, with more than over 200,000 cases a day and more than 100,000 hospitalized, and between 2,000 to 3,000 people dead. And hospitalization tend to occur predominantly in black and brown people, although other ethnic group have experienced that, but the it's the people who are doing essential job, the nursing home people who are mostly affected by this. Why should you get the vaccine? Well, I got it after I reviewed the data. I became confident that um, the vaccines, the Pfizer, especially that I took, is safe. They actually both safe and effective. But healthcare providers, they were initially concerned about the political pressure being put on the US FDA in the beginning. And based on my public health and medical background as an internist and now as an infectious disease specialist, after reviewing the data, I decided to um, trust the COVID vaccines, both the Pfizer and the Moderna, and I took the Pfizer. My first dose was in December 21st, 2020, and my next dose is in January 11th, 2021. Yes, the term um, Operation Warp Speed and emergency authorization do convey a haste that could be interpreted as in conflict with safety. And yes, history provides example of vaccines and pharmaceuticals that had negative consequences. Thus, those concerns they are reasonable. However, this vaccine development did not cut corners. Moderna and Pfizer's compressed timeline reflects unique partnership between industry, government, and academia, high level of funding, and decades of previous research on messenger RNA vaccines, as well as countless individuals working day and night, given the nature of this crisis. In fact, one of the top leading scientists um, who worked on the Moderna vaccine was an African American young lady by the name of Kizmika Corbett. And that's to show you that there's there should be some level of trust there. Authorization may be expedited, but both organizations followed the requisite orderly progression from phase one to phase three trials. The careful scientific design and the rigor um, has given us a great deal of confidence in the final product. Despite prior political pressure applied to the process, two federal advisory boards, the FDA and the US Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, as well as the separate advisory monitoring board, they independently and transparently, again I repeat, independently and transparently evaluated both the Pfizer and Moderna's data and found them to be safe and effective. The vaccines work and are effective at 95% and 94%. We still don't know the long term efficacy of the vaccines. Will we need to be vaccinated again in the following year? Well, perhaps right now, we need whatever protection the vaccine can afford us to get the pandemic behind us and finally get some normality in our daily life. Now, the side effects are real, but minor and certainly not as bad as the disease. Just like everything else in medicine, such as you taking your medication, there will be temporary minor side effects, such as low grade fever, muscle aches, headaches, fatigue, especially after the second dose of the vaccine. In fact, it is a good idea to carefully schedule your vaccine day when you do not have to go to work. These side effects are, however, neither dangerous nor long lasting as the COVID 19 itself. Even the worst possible reactions, possible Bell's palsy, anaphylactic allergic reaction are rare and treatable. Now, the administration sites, the place where you get the vaccine, will monitor you for such events, usually about 30 minutes. So we are much less worried about vaccine side effects than from the non complication, hospitalization, and possibly death from getting COVID-19. Now, there's no evidence behind some of the weird claims that we've heard and seen online about the vaccine causing long-term hidden harm. These allegations, they actually mirror the talking point of the anti-vaccine movement. More importantly, they simply are not based in scientific reality. The messenger RNA just serves as a blueprint for a little piece of protein that stimulates the immune system, and then it is quickly broken by the body, and it is physically impossible, physically impossible for it to be incorporated in our underlying genetic material. Again, I repeat that the messenger RNA just serves as a blueprint for a little piece of protein that stimulates the immune system, and it is quickly broken down by the body, and it's physically impossible for it to be incorporated into our underlying genetic material. Impossible. People with autoimmune, even people with autoimmune disorders, they were included in the trial, and no increased flares were observed. Now, um, trial participants have been monitored for 2 months or longer. These products are deemed to be safe and effective, both for us and for our families and our patients. Now, from most providers' perspective, the likelihood of harm from COVID-19 in both the short and long term far outweigh the small potential risks from the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. And you got to understand that the vaccine is not a magic bullet. It is better than getting COVID 19. It is important that no overpromise in the vaccine. There is no overpromise. It does not cure, but it rather prevents, and even then, it only reliably prevents disease the most after the second dose has been received. We don't currently know how effective it is in preventing asymptomatic transmission. That's the reason why infection transmission prevention or public health measures such as the triple W's, the wearing of masks, the watching your distance, the washing of hands, must continue for months to come until the majority of people in the US, at least 80%, have been vaccinated to attain herd immunity or collective immunity. Unfortunately, the logistic of vaccine deployment has been a challenge, but we'll get there eventually. But at the end of the day, in a year in which we have lost so many lives, young and old, the consistent reported efficacy of this COVID vaccine is such a blessing. And we are thankful to God and science. Vaccines have had a major role in transforming the expectancy of the global population, thanks to the acceptance rather than the skepticism of the general public. And they will continue to do so if we let them. By God's grace, it is important to acknowledge the blessing that we have of being able to benefit from science without um, having to deal with the underlying discrimination. Unfortunately, the abuse of big pharma and the corporatization of medicine in the US, they've driven a wedge between the general population and medical advances. And even so, the groups that are marginalized are discriminated against, such as the black and brown. Uh, People have been used as guinea pigs, and their previous or recent contacts with healthcare professionals have been deeply embedded with racism and bigotry. And we cannot expect those patients or those people to um, trust the medical research overnight. So we empathize with them. I empathize with the people who felt um, certain kind of way towards the medical institution. It is justified. But we, the medical professionals, must do everything that we can to regain the trust by addressing every concern possible. And we have people who are well qualified, who can guide us or who have guided us through um, the research. And people like Dr. Fauci, who actually received the vaccine, the Moderna vaccine. You have other scientists, Dr. Kemiska Corbett, and myself, I've received the vaccine as an infectious disease specialist. And you have other providers who have received the vaccine. As you can see here, many um, colleagues have received the vaccine and they found it to be safe and effective so far. And even our vice president elect, vice president elect Kamala Harris have received the vaccine. And so while we can say trust us, it is safe, it's not easy as that, but the vaccine is truly beneficial. It's a beneficial preventive measure, uh, even though not everybody said that way. So we believe, and I believe that the vaccine is safe and effective, and it should be distributed with equity, especially the people who have been affected the most, the minority population should be given a fair chance at receiving the vaccine. But I'm telling you, and I'm recommending that for us in the Black community, we should be willing and be ready to receive the vaccine. We should consider it. And if you not considering, please do not discourage others from considering that the two vaccines. They are effective and they are safe. And when I reviewed the data, I noticed that it's very diversified and there were participants in many countries and they are at 95% and 94% effective. So it is safe. And let us commit to keep fighting for equitable access to all COVID resources for the vulnerable and low socioeconomic communities, including vaccine administration, in order to mitigate the pandemic impact on all possible fronts. Again, this was your friend, your brother, your Dr. Francois Cadet, infectious disease specialist. Thank you. And be safe.